Hello, everybody. It's been months since the 2024 election, and a lot of opinions have settled. Now is the time to discuss what really happened here. And I should start by showing my map or my prediction. Um, Now, in the full use of transparency, this is the 2028 presidential election interactive map, but it's the same map. It's based off the 2020 census, so the 2024 election map, the 2028 election map are the same. But this was mine. So the only difference was that Michigan I had going blue, I had it going for Kamala Harris. The reason I had that is because the last week or so, the betting markets, specifically on Polymarket, which is what I use or use to track, had this going to her at about a 60% chance, 55, 60% chance, whereas Wisconsin and Pennsylvania were heavily favored towards Trump. So I ended up going with Michigan there. So I got 49 of the 50 states correct, but I should have known this would end up going red because these three states, commonly referred to as the WIMPA states, right? um, all seem to trend to vote together. The last time they didn't all vote together was in 1988. Michael Dukakis won Wisconsin. So I should have known that these three will always work together. And they were a blue wall for a very long time, from 92, yes, to 2016, until Trump took all three of them. So I should have known that whoever wins is going to win all three of them. But whatever, lesson learned. I wanted to talk about something I noticed on election day, right? So as you can see, these were the seven swing states, right? Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. The day of the election, when you would go in here, these seven swing states would all be gray, like so, right? The color. I'm not going to change all of them at the time, but on the day of the election, this was faded just a little bit red. It's like 270 to win, knew, hey, Arizona's going to go for Trump. So that made me very confident that, hey, this state is in fact going to go red. It's going to be hard for Kamala to pull this one off. Now, you still had hope, right, that maybe the blue wall up here could go blue. North Carolina, Georgia, she could pick up. Nevada, she could pick up. And ultimately, that did not end up happening. But it was extremely interesting. It seemed as though Arizona was kind of a lost cause, although it took a very long time to certify that and to know what happened, get all the votes counted, right? So here's our election map. Uh, the handy dandy Wikipedia here to help us out. Very interesting things here. So the first time a Republican had won the popular vote um, since 2004 when Bush won over Kerry. Trump got about 49.8% of it to Kamala's 48.3%. So there was a lot of talk about. It was a mandate. It was an overwhelming victory. And at first, right, the first coverage, if you went to CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, was that Trump had really, really put a dent in the popular vote and kind of won this overwhelmingly. I remember looking at um, a state like Illinois, and it had Trump winning 53 or losing 53% to 45%, which is only 8%. That's crazy in a state like Illinois. And then it creeped back up by the time all the votes were in, and it was 10%, as you can see. Um, but it really felt like this was an overwhelming victory. And then as all the votes got counted, it's a 2 million vote victory for Trump, which is impressive because it wasn't expected. There was talks about, hey, he could win the electoral college. He did in 2016, but because of shifting demographics and high populations in these kind of democratic strongholds like California, Illinois, New York, it's going to be really hard to offset that large population of people um, for the Republicans. But Trump seemed to win it. The Republicans seemed to win it, and that was kind of a surprise. Again, in 2016, he did not win the popular vote, and in 2020, he obviously did not win the popular vote. And there was talk and a lot of analysis that said the Democrats had to win the popular vote to be able to have a chance at the White House. We're going to kind of look at that deeper and see what the math tells us, what the facts and figures say, if that really is true, and kind of if that's sort of a theme going forward, that if the Democratic candidate doesn't win the popular vote, do they have zero chance? I'm a little bit skeptical of that, but we could see. A big thing I wanted to talk about was in a lot of the predictions I saw, voter registration and who was registering to vote, right? So there was some analysts that kind of made me think Kamala was going to win because they were saying young women in particular, but women were going out and registering in really high numbers, record numbers, right? But where was that happening? No offense to Democrats, but if in California you're registering young Democratic voters at a very high clip, that's not tilting this 270 to win number. That's not making a dent in this, right? Um, if you're registering a lot of um, young Democratic women in Arizona or Michigan, that's very exciting for the Democrats, right? So where was that happening? What were those numbers people were getting? Because it wasn't really reflected. I saw in the swing states where it really mattered most, Pennsylvania, which was talked about so much. Um, you were seeing a state that was decided by about 80,000 votes, very tight, 80,000 or so, in 2020, that had like almost cut the amount of the deficit, right? I think it was about 600,000 um, Democrat to Republican voters in half. So that kind of disrupts that hypothesis of there's this young Democratic women voting in or registering to vote in huge numbers, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to conceptualize that as helping the Democrats win in a state like Pennsylvania, right? And then another one was North Carolina. I mean, there was a lot of registering Republicans coming out in North Carolina. It was almost unprecedented. Combined with they were a little bit worried about the black vote not showing up in North Carolina, and that is kind of what happened here. It was a tricky election to predict because you were wondering how much Roe v. Wade would affect the vote, right? Because in 2022 there was this whole myth of hey, big red wave, and it didn't happen. And a lot of the thought behind that was hey, Roe v. Wade, you switched that back recently. People are angry about it. They're voting against Republican leadership. It seemed to be that the theme of this election was the inflation. There was some border issues, and the American people trusted Trump more on that, and that's ultimately why he won. Let's talk a little bit about a very interesting statistic here. So we went over the percentage, went over the popular vote. States carried. Now, I can show you some previous elections. This is so interesting. So you can see here, 31 states Trump carried, right? Kamala 19. You'd almost think this would be more lopsided, right? He got over half. Like that's very much insane. But Democratic states, it's so interesting, are the high population states. Let's go to 2020, an election that was kind of not necessarily a landslide, but 306 to 232. It's a very big win right there by Biden. Carried just 25 states, a difference of 6 states. Look, they're even. You look at this and you go 25, that's even. 7 million more votes, almost 5% more in the percentage of the vote. What a big win, right? So it just goes to show Republicans have to win quite a bit of states to be able to have a chance in these elections. Let's show the election that Donald Trump won over Hillary Clinton in 2016. He carried 30 states. 30 states. Again, as we talked about, lost the popular vote, the percentage here as well. 30 states. So it's very interesting. Trump wins 30 states, right? Carries 6 of the 7 swing states we talked about. Doesn't win Nevada. Doesn't win it. Then we go to 2020. Look at this, people. Loses Nevada, loses Arizona, Georgia in a shocker, Pennsylvania, this whole blue wall. He got North Carolina, one of the 7 swing states in 2024. Then comes out and wins all of them and picks up a state he never had won before in Nevada. Truly interesting why he was able to do that. Some of the thinking going into this was we saw in 2020 white vote, the white suburban vote, the white suburban woman vote had abandoned Trump. That kind of showed up from 2016, right? But what happened was the Hispanic vote in 2020 really showed out for Trump, and that's when Florida kind of became no longer a swing state, a very much tilt red state. So these states over here, Nevada and Arizona respectively, didn't really seem like they had good opportunities for Kamala, and that's crazy because Nevada has been very much a left-leaning state. Arizona has been very much right-leaning, barely went to Biden in 2020. But the Hispanic vote isn't as large in numbers as the white vote, and so that white suburban vote kind of overwhelmed Trump in 2020. But as you can see, voter turnout was down from 2020. Not as many people voting, not as much of that white vote to go against Trump, and then some of it switched back additionally. But the Hispanic vote, Nevada and Arizona, I mean, these weren't even particularly close. Arizona might not be a swing state the next cycle through, depending on who the Republican candidate is, and if they can garner the Hispanic support that Trump did. I mean, it's 5, 6 points. I mean, that is pretty huge for what was considered to be a swing state. Nevada, again, not really something the Republicans thought, hey, this is like a state we should be able to get all the time. Uh, a 3 point margin. I mean, big margins over here. That was the Hispanic vote saying, hey, we're here voting for Trump. I mean, just look at Wisconsin, which is very white compared to those in rural. And Trump doesn't even win it by a full point. I mean, it's very shocking what happened. We're seeing trends where we used to see Hispanic go blue, and now it's coming red. It very well might have won Trump the election. I mean, you look at Pennsylvania. These counties over here in the northeast part, or the kind of middle east part of Pennsylvania, very much Latino, and went for Trump overwhelmingly, except this one. Um, that was a large shift that needed to be talked about. Where he was with whites, a little bit better, right? There was a lot of general improvement. The left would say probably anti-incumbency. The Trump side would say, oh, it was a huge mandate. It's probably a little bit more in the middle and maybe the anti-incumbency. But Donald Trump was able to gain support from a lot of people, but definitely the Hispanic vote showed up in good numbers for Trump. Was probably the ultimate deciding factor. I'd love to delve more into this election in another video. I wanted to get started on what happened, and we can go more in depth on it in the future. I think we should go state by state, talk a little bit more about that. I'll be coming with at you guys with some 2028 predictions and 2026 midterms predictions. So stay tuned for that. And please in the comments, let me know what you think. Let me know why you think Trump won or why you think Kamala lost. The voter registration breakdown, trends, anything you guys see, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching.